Hi, Martha. We're so excited to have you on today, and we're just going to jump straight into the conversations. How did you get started in the arts?
Classic way of my older sister was doing ballet classes. I want to be like my big sister slash better than my big sister, so I'm gonna do that as well. So I did like just my local dance school classes in the evenings, bit of childcare, keep the kids entertained.
And was it just ballet you were doing, or did you venture out into other styles?
So I started doing ballet and then did tap, modern, did like a little bit of commercial classes, realized quite quickly that's not my forte. But that's fine. You've got to experience it to know what is your thing or not. I think it's probably about 7 or 8. I did Scottish country dancing. Like there are exams for Scottish country dancing. So I trained in that alongside doing like my ballet tap, modern dance and stuff. Yeah, so that's kind of what I was doing as a kid, just as your hobbies on the side and things.
Can you remember how old you were when you decided, I want to do dance as my career and take it more seriously, more so than just a hobby?
I decided when I was quite young, but definitely at that age had no idea of what that actually meant. You know, when you're little and you commit to being like, this is what I want to be when I grow up, but had no idea really the context. And then I think as I started going through secondary school, started to question that a little bit. Is this really for me? I was quite into like my schoolwork and I was like, do I want to go study at university or do I want to go for this dance thing instead? But I didn't, and I did dance, and I'm so happy about it.
When you decided, I'm going to do this, I want to dance, did you have any pushback, or did you find that family and friends were supportive?
For me, I was very lucky. My family wanted me to go into the arts. Well, my mum would always be like, I can't tell you what to do. Wink, wink, hint, hint. But I was quite academic at school, so trying to persuade my teachers and the school that no, going to do dance is just as valid and a good route to go down. So I was going to go study geography. That was my other passion. So trying to speak to teachers and be like, why dance? Like, come on, you're good at this schoolwork thing, go do that. And they didn't really trust that it's a valid pathway, which uses your brain, in my opinion, even more than if you were maybe doing your more generic academics. So yeah, I was lucky my family were fully supportive of it, but had a hard time persuading the teachers that this was a good option to go for.
And why geography? What drew you to geography?
I think originally environmental science, climate change was probably my first route into that. What is going on in the world and like that sort of sciencey things. I get quite geeky with it, so I like learning about your rock formations and things like that. So in my final year of studying geography, there was one topic called, I think it was called changing places or something, and it was all about place and space, which I found fascinating. Looking at the ideas of what is place, what does it mean to individuals, what does it mean to communities, and even bigger than that, it confused me so much. Like, if I was to ask you now, like, what is place, for me is a question that really stumps me. So, trying to unpack what is place, I find fascinating and is actually a large part of my work as a dance researcher and choreographer. So, when I was trying to pick between geography or dance. Now I'm actually getting to use both together.
Just before we move on to your work, when you were in school, it was difficult to almost persuade teachers or show teachers that you can do dance and everything will be okay. Did you feel that was because they didn't understand or they weren't aware of maybe the progression of how you still go to a university, you just go to a different university?
Yeah, I think from what I found, people are still maybe slightly stuck in the idea that sometimes we do dance because, I don't know, dancers are just there to do and they're not thinking at the same time. And so maybe there's a bit of that stigma still. Or actually, I definitely felt it and would have conversations with people of being like, dancers aren't smart, which is really sad because that's not true at all and is not what I've experienced working in this profession. I mean, I was listening to some of your other podcasts and your opening podcast about like being neurodivergent. I think being neurodivergent and being attracted to the arts, there's definitely a correlation in that.
Oh,
But
definitely.
being neurodivergent is not being smart.
No,
Just a
no.
completely different way of thinking. And so you'll get lots of neurodivergent people working within the arts who are so clever, ridiculously clever. Maybe the generic reading and writing isn't their forte. They're so smart. And I think that kind of has left this very incorrect image that you go into the arts because you're not doing the brains, which is so wrong. But I think I felt that and noticed that in my teacher's response to me going, I'm going to go do dance, which, in my opinion, is so much thinking and brain work, and you have to be really clever to do it. But that's not maybe what is seen for somebody who doesn't do it themselves.
I think it's so true what you're saying. There are so many people who are neurodivergent in the arts. They probably fall into it because the academic system doesn't completely suit them, because
Mm.
their way of learning is more physical, or holding something in your hand or physically moving it, maybe building something. Because I know I would have had issues with schools as well, where you'd really have to break it down for guidance counselors and stuff, where you're like, I'm not going on like a crazy gap year or something. I know what I'm talking about here, but I think it is very strange, because that would have started for me when I was probably 15 or 16. And it's strange because you have to explain a whole sector, how it
Yeah.
works at 15 years old.
And it's so confusing. I'm 22 and obviously still very young, but it's confusing and I'm actually working in it now. So trying to describe that when you have no idea yet.
From like a place where you're spending, yes, you're dancing or acting or whatever, but you are doing it as like a sideline to school, because you're in school about what, 8 hours, 6 hours a
Yeah.
day. To go and maybe even just describing to people like, oh yeah, sitting down and reading a book or listening to what the teacher is saying is just not how some people learn. And that's probably why you get so many different types of artists. You can have visual artists, you can have
Hmm.
dancers, and even in dancers you have a huge umbrella of ballet dancers, contemporary dancers, hip hop dancers, and then you start fusions. The list is endless. It's quite
Exactly.
literally endless.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is really a struggle that you're 15 years old and you're having to explain how an entire
Or
sector
just like
works.
validate that your decisions that you're trying to make about your career. It's like,
Yeah,
no, I want to do this. That should be enough.
yeah. Like the child who says they want to be a doctor, or they want to go into science, or they want to be a biologist or
Yeah.
whatever. You're not telling those students that. You're telling me, because I wanted to go into the arts. I do know as well, when I was in secondary school, I was the only one in my year who chose an artsy path, and I came from a biggish year. Well, it
Hmm.
seems small now when I hear some of the classes, like they have like 1,000 in like a school or something, and I'm like, whoa, okay. So I came from a small school, but in my day, well, no, I'm not going to say that. I'm not that old. When I was in school, school seemed smaller, but yeah.
Yeah.
So you went on to university to do
Hmm.
dance.
Yes.
Where did you go, and how did you find your training there?
So I trained at Rambert School in London, which I loved. I really, really liked training there. I was quite lucky. I did a pre-voc, so it's like their associate's course before I joined there full time. So I would go up on Saturdays. I grew up in Dorset, which is southwest of England, so I could go up to train at the weekends in London, which was nice. It meant that when I went to Rambert full time, I kind of knew the staff, I knew the building. It wasn't a massive shock. I knew a lot about the school already, but I was just so grateful to be dancing full time. I went at 18, and I think I'd seen like a few people going off at 16, and I was like, to my mum, why won't you let me? But she was very firm that no, you're finishing school. So I was, yeah, just excited to be dancing full time.
But I know some people do like a CAT scheme.
Hmm.
Is that the program you did in
Yeah.
Rambert?
Yeah, it was very similar. So a lot of my mates that were in my year at Rambert did like the Place Cat or Laban Cat. There's Lowry Cat up north as well. Like there was a few others. But for me, the Rambert Prevoc it was the equivalent, but just slightly more accessible if you weren't living in London, because it was just like 1 day a week. The equivalent of trying to get a bit more contemporary training for young people, There's a lot of ballet you can access, but trying to get contemporary training is hard.
Just a little insight into what your day training at Rambert would look like.
So the Rambert undergrad course is an equal split of ballet and contemporary dance. The average day should be like 2 ballet classes, 2 contemporary classes, roughly. So you'll have every day a ballet technical class, and then you might have pas de deux, maybe occasionally a bit of point work or another like variation on ballet, and then a contemporary class. You might then have improv or conditioning. It's normally about 4 classes a day with roughly an even split of ballet and contemporary. Because it's a very small school, there's no halls either. I know it's the same with some other contemporary schools in London, but it means everyone's kind of living in houses around, and you get a very small, tiny bubble of people, and they do become your family for 3 years. It can be quite intense, but it is great and lovely.
And did you do any what's the word I'm thinking of, like academic kind of subjects while you were studying there? It's not quite the word I'm thinking of, but
Yeah, so we called it critical studies. I don't know if that was the same. You trained at Laban.
I was at lab, and yeah, we did a few classes on like dance history and like health and well-being, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so we do first year you do dance psychology and somatics, and like you'll write a few essays, which I remember being a massive deal for us. Like we'd have to write, I think it was 2 essays a year, which was the biggest task ever. And then I'll speak to my other mates who have gone to a more normal university, and they'll be like, 2 essays a year? Are you kidding me? But yeah, that always felt like a big task because I guess we didn't practice it much.
We
But
had
yeah,
the same thing, and they gave us ages. We got
right?
ages to write our
You have a full
essays.
semester to write an essay,
Oh
and
yeah,
still, like the day before, everyone's going, no!
oh yeah, they give it to you like 3 weeks in, and you're like, yeah, this isn't due until like Easter break.
Yeah,
And it's huge. It's huge. You spend ages doing it, and maybe because it's not your main thing. It's like my main thing is
it's
in the
not the
studio
priority
moving.
of your course. Yeah,
Oh yeah, and you maybe don't fully have the tools. Like I think I went in, I did my leaving cert and was like, well, I never have to write anything again. And then suddenly they slap an essay down at you, and you're like, oh yeah, it's 2,000-3,000 words, and you're like, oh, I thought I was done.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, well, let me just find my pencil case, and we'll get started.
I think for me, going in Rambert, they knew that trying to decide between going to study geography and study dance, they knew that about me already because I was an associate with them. They were very helpful and gave me meetings to talk about what I wanted to do with my future, to try to guide me in the best way without being like, no, you should pick dance. They were very helpful and gave me lots of space to chat and decide about what I wanted to do. But it meant that when I started at the school, the faculty already knew that I had that interest and that I liked academics. I was able to, from first year, emphasize that was something that I was quite interested in within dance. I think I was just interested in how I could keep this side of me going, that like something that I am passionate about. I have gone to study dance, but I would like to keep that going as well. And so I was really lucky at Rambert. The staff there are great. The critical studies faculty, very, very intelligent people, and were able to push me and make sure that I was able to keep working on those sorts of things as well.
That's very nice that you had like an opportunity to talk to almost like a guidance counselor in Rambert. I'd say that was great to have that support that maybe you didn't have in like just like your normal academic school. Do you feel that kind of helped?
Yeah, for sure. I think being able to talk with dancers and people who have already had their career or still having their career within dance as a form of guidance. I think probably in summary, dancers are, or creators, I would say creators are very open-minded and have kind of stuck their fingers in loads of different professions by nature of their job, and so are able to give good advice on, I guess, just different perspectives and experiences in comparison to like maybe my geography teacher who would have no idea what it is that I'm about to go into. But as an artist, you've had to delve into a bit of those academics because we all went to school and we all had to do our English and maths. You've done that. You've done maybe your bit of acting training, your little bit of, I don't know, maybe more visual arts and things like that. I feel like you've kind of tested out different things, or you at least know somebody who's in that field. And so you're able to give that sort of advice. It's understandable.
So you've just finished your training.
Yes.
When you were leading up to the end of your training, or even maybe when you were going into your training at the very start, did you have, this is the direction I'm heading in, or I'd like to do this or perform in that? Did you have a kind of a, like, I guess some people call it maybe the 5-year plan or something?
I did when I was really little. Originally, I wanted to go to a ballet school because I'd never done contemporary dance. The first time I did contemporary was when I started the associates at Rambert. I hadn't touched it before. When I was probably again like 12, I was like, I'm going to go to ballet school and then I want to dance for Matthew Bourne's New Adventures. I had it so clearly planned out. I love the fact that that is not what I want to do anymore. Obviously, to get to a dance with New Adventures would be incredible. I'm not saying that that's not what I want to do, but I have loved being able to broaden to some amazing things, amazing people that I'd like to work with, different projects, different choreographers, doing different styles of movement. I think that was because I got introduced to contemporary dance, and that was really exciting. So I think that was me in my early teens. And then I started doing contemporary dance and went, whoa, there's a lot more going on, which makes me very excited. And so I kind of entered training with all of that in mind. But I'd say probably still quite geared up to more of a company dancer mindset. I guess I didn't know much about freelancing, and it's probably maybe more just a slightly younger, naive thing of going like, I guess you just work for a company, I think. Because also no one really explains, I didn't even know what freelancing was. And that's not explained to you, especially when you're trying to speak to your guidance counselor who's like, so how are you going to get your job? And you're like, I don't know, I guess I'll be part of a company. So I had no idea. I started to realize just before going into full-time training that freelancing is basically where the industry is at. Third year was probably my biggest realization on the realities of actually being a professional and the stress. I think third year is fascinating as you go through all those auditions. Try and like shift your mindset from the fact that I've been a student for 2 years. I'm technically still a student, like I'm in third year and I want to make the most out of this year and still be a student and learn loads. But I have to market myself as a professional and present somebody who's employable, but I'm still learning and I'm really unsure on everything.
We had this discussion with another dancer. Did you feel that you were prepared when you graduated to be able to find where the auditions are, how to fill out application forms if you're going for funding, where to find funding, bursaries and all that? Or was that something that was left out of your training?
I think for us in third year, Rambert did try to put in sessions, would have chats on like how to make a show reel, what should your CV look like. And a lot of that would be with our teachers who there'll be more of like the part-time teachers who have still got a professional career going, so are actively still working and are putting their own show reels out and putting their own CVs out. They're still looking for work, but they're teach at Rambert a few days a week or something. So those chats were really helpful. And we had a few conversations on applying for funding and also looking after yourself as a dancer. What are your rights? Looking at those contracts and going, oh, is that dodgy? What you have the right to say, no, I'm not signing that, or you've broken your side of the contract here. We had a few chats on that. So I think an active effort was made, but it was still absolutely terrifying to graduate because I feel like you can be told as much of the information as possible, but you kind of have to experience it. And still now I'll sit down to do an Arts Council application and be like, I feel like I'm going back to writing the one essay a semester situation and going like, this is the biggest task ever and I don't know where to begin. I'm feeling a bit lost in that. I think I didn't feel necessarily prepared, but I'm not sure if I ever would have been because I think it maybe takes just doing it.
That's amazing, though, that you got input from teachers, because we had this conversation with another dancer and it was completely different, where they felt they really didn't have any of that information at hand. It wasn't given to them. Very much kind of the mindset of, oh, you go and you do your training. That's it. We did our job and off you go now. The rest is up to you. That's amazing, though. You did get help and people even just to sit down, because like, and with a contract and say, watch out for this, or this is bad, this is good, because even contracts can be written in a funny English that normal people even go, what?
Yeah.
I'm a bit lost here. And it can put people in danger because they
Yeah.
don't always know what they're signing, especially when you've got dancers who they're so excited for their first job, and it can turn out to be a
You'll
nightmare
sign
very
anything.
quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. And I think the stance that, so these sessions, it'll do a small shout out to Richard Chappell, who's a dance artist and choreographer in the southwest of England, and like he's very passionate about just treating dancers correctly. I think his point was, you're all going to be wanting to make your own work, potentially, hopefully employ people, so I also want to make sure that you know how to write your contracts correctly. Often that's later down the line, but we want to be put into situations where we're treated well and it's a great creative space. But facilitating that yourself, maybe we don't put as much thought into. It's an important thing. It's something that I would really like to be part of my career as well.
I don't know if this sounds cheesy, but the way you said it, it goes back to, I think, what you even learn in primary school of treat others the way you would like to be treated. No
Exactly.
one's going to want to work for someone who's an absolute dickhead. And then it's like, oh, well, we're not going to work for that person, or be in a situation where you feel like you have to because that's the only job available. That means you're just not going to enjoy the job. You're not going to enjoy the craft. And you probably end up wanting to get out of the industry entirely much, much quicker than if you just learn to be just nice
Yeah.
and not
And it's
take
not
advantage
rocket
of
science.
people. No.
We're all working within the same industry and the same sector, and we all have the exact same pressures and stresses. So we can actually just be nice, and it tends to come back to you as well. And that's kind of lovely.
Because people will want to work again with you if you're nice. But if you're an absolute dickhead, they're going to be like, look, as soon as this project is over, put them on the blacklist and we don't touch them again. Find
Yeah.
someone else. There's
Yeah.
no shortage of finding someone else. But we've gone through training.
Mhm.
Yes. So you have now found yourself in Ireland.
Yes.
How did
Yeah.
that happen? Because you grew up and you trained in England.
Yes. So I moved to Dublin in September, just gone. Honestly, so happy and excited to be here. I knew graduating that I wanted to leave London. I've got family here in Ireland. I think I realised for a lot of artists who have grown up in the UK, there are great schools training in London. There was no way I was going to train abroad because that's crazy expensive, and I can get student finance to go do my dance degree in London and get very good training. So there was no reason to move abroad for training. After training, there's a lot of opportunities in the UK as well. I don't know, I just realized that it's going to be very easy for me to just stay in the UK my whole life and kind of just do it because the opportunities, I guess, are here. There's a big international intake at Rambert, so a lot of my mates moved over. A lot of people came from Australia, elsewhere in Europe, America, and I realized that they had such a different, just a very valuable experience of just moving to a different country. As an artist, I think that's, I don't know, I guess I just wanted that for myself. Maybe that sounds a bit weird. I don't know. I was kind of like, oh, it would be easy to stay settled in the UK. I've got my network here and my family. It felt like I'd be missing a chance to develop as an artist in a different way. Ireland is really exciting at the moment. From, I think, 3 years of training, I just would hear little snippets of, oh, there's this choreographer doing that, and that project came out. Or like someone would tour over and like do something at Sadler's. And I kind of kept getting little snippets whilst training. There were a few choreographers who was like, do you know what? That would be an absolute dream to get to work with you. Like, that would be pinnacle of my career. And they're based in Ireland. And I was like, I'll just move because there's no point trying to get those jobs. I may as well be here if the people that I want to be working with and the people who I'm really inspired of as artists, if they're here, I may as well be living here as well. So it kind of all like fitted in, like the desire to leave London and the UK, and also inspired by what's happening over here. So I just kind of thought, well, it's perfect. I'm happy with the decision. Like, I'm having a great time here.
Who were you really inspired by?
For me, my biggest one is Michael Keegan Dolan and Chuck Downs. That like, obsessed. I never cry at dance work, like ever. Floods of tears watching Mam, like incredible. That's my big dream one. Like that would be amazing. Also, Una Doherty working up in the north. I think Irish Modern Dance Theatre as well. Jenny Roach in Limerick. I a big fan of like her writing and academic work. I use it a lot for my own research, and my third year dissertation was analysing one of her articles. I like spent a lot of time reading about Jenny Roach and dance in Limerick and things like that. Yeah, those are like just a few names and companies.
What is your practice in your research? Because you mentioned earlier with like geography and you kind of brought that in.
Yeah.
If you could just give us a little insight into what your practice looks like.
So if somebody asked to describe what I do, I say that I'm a dance artist, which encompasses me as a performer, choreographer, and researcher. My aim is to have a career that has an even level-ish of those aspects. I do like performing and I love being on stage, and I like working with other choreographers and interpreting their movement and their ideas onto my own body. The technical training that I got at Rambert, I value that training and I like to be able to make use of it. Also more improvisational ways of moving as well. So I like working with choreographers and then interpreting that information in my own body. Choreography wise, I've just finished a short series of works which there's a mixture of duets, group dances, solos, which were all working within this very similar aesthetic. And they've kind of worked on it for about 3 years so that they can all be put together in one big piece, or just like short snippets of like a 5-minute piece, a 3-minute solo or something. Working within this same aesthetic, which last week actually I was doing a lecture at Oxford University, which was about these works. And through talking about it and preparing for the presentation, I realised it was all about space and place, which is actually my research, which I hadn't originally planned when I was making the pieces. I was just like, oh, this is fun. I like this. Do that, please. I want to put that on stage. But then going back and analysing it and how I would present that in a lecture, I was like, this is all about place and space, which is what my third year dissertation was on. The aim of the dissertation was to go, I'm interested in geography, and I did a lot of reading and research on geography and geographers talking about space and place. How can these concepts be relevant to dance? The whole project, to summarize it briefly, whenever we dance, we evoke place, which is really fleeting and in the moment. You can never create it again, but place has been evoked because people are experiencing it. My main conclusions, it's a load of philosophical, I use the word nonsense. It's not nonsense, but I know that sometimes it can be a bit of nonsense, and like I get a bit geeky on the philosophy of it. It was all very phenomenologically based, and yeah, you can use some big wanker words that are not necessarily relevant. But my main conclusions was basically raising the dancer's importance within a dance piece and not having it just being like, the choreographer said this and the dancers do that. No, the dancers were just as important in making this piece, and the place, as I would like to say, which is evoked or emerges in that moment that the dance is performed, is because of the dancers who contributed to it. That's a very brief way, and I think that was the reason why the research for me was important to, I guess, it just raising the dancer's voice and going, when a choreographer says they choreographed it, did you choreograph it, or did you choreograph it with your dancers, who also gave a lot of movement and were very fundamental in the formation of that piece? Sorry, that's probably a brief way of putting it without going into all the philosophy and geography and...
Sounds incredible, Martha. Like, publish it.
Well, I've just got a grant, so I'm going to get to publish it this year. That's exciting. So I'm very...
Okay, well, we cannot wait to read it, because I'm like, that sounds very cool.
I'm excited to get started on taking it from like a dissertation version to something that can be published, which is this year's kind of main project. So that's exciting.
You've gotten a grant to do this, which is amazing. Congratulations. How did you find applying for that grant? What was your experience?
I was very lucky. This grant that I've got for it is through Rambert School. After we finished our dissertation, I was nominated from the dissertation that I wrote. They put it forward, and then it went through like a panel and stuff. I got given the award for it. So I'm very grateful and I'm very excited, but I didn't have to go through all the, I think that was just wow, I got really lucky in this one. So yeah, very grateful. And again, that was like a great team at Rambert who were passionate about. I think because I am interested in promoting research within dance and championing the fact that we are thinking dancers, I didn't have to go through all the grants funding. But I'm doing a lot of that at the moment, and I find the first battle is finding stuff in time and going like, I'm trying to, like, I have a bar job, I have a teaching job and stuff, and so time is limited, and just I also don't want to be on my social media every second of the day to be able to find these opportunities. But that does seem to be the main way that you find things. But sometimes life happens and you miss it, or you find out about it a few days before and you're like, I don't have time needed to do all of this. And so I think for me, my main battle at the moment is weighing up how much time I have to invest in these grant applications. Like, they are a big bit of work, whilst also knowing that the chances of success can be, depending on what you're applying for, can be quite small, and going, but I needed to get to work because I need to pay the bills and I've got other things, and like prioritizing what you're going to be spending your time on versus the chances of you actually getting something back, especially as a young artist. And I'll be writing stuff in and they'll be like, can you put in your experience? And you're like, you can sniff out instantly that I've just graduated. I can try and put this in as many different words as I can, but let's not lie about it because I know you know. I don't want to be like, I guess I'll just wait 3 years and then maybe someone will take me, because I also think that in these 3 years, like, we have a lot of interesting things to say and make. I feel the pressure of being a recent graduate and being a young artist a lot, and knowing where you have the place to say things, because I know that we're new, we don't have loads of experience, and I don't want to be like the new young person who's going, this is wrong and we need to do this and da da da, and people like, just calm down, like you've just graduated. But also, we do have a lot of things to say which are valuable and important, and kind of navigating that line. And then when it comes to applying for things, going, yeah, maybe you can't trust me because I don't have much evidence to prove of past like successful projects. But I think also the perspective that we can give, like in this small snapshot now of being a young artist, is important and relevant, and probably something that people would be interested in hearing and knowing about.
Well, that's very valid. Don't wait the 3 years. Don't. It's not worth it. Get out there and produce what you can. We've talked to people who are not 3 years out, but they
Yes.
are making work, and some get grants and some don't. And it's working with what you have, and it's very difficult to find the time to fill out all those forms. I know, Niamh, you're more of an expert on this than me, but there's so many that you don't always find out about them well enough in advance, where you're like, well, it's going to take me half a day just to read through the application and sit and be like, okay, what is it you want, and does this even suit me? Because sometimes the application forms can be quite vague in that you're like, well, what do you want me, what are you looking for? Because it's not really clear. You just kind of said this is an application for artists, and it's like, well,
I literally was looking at one just before we went on, and I was like, I'm gonna just have to email them and say, hey, can I apply to this, or is this not for me? Because of being neurodivergent, like CC in the access person, because I was like, I actually can't understand the way you've put this. And I think something you said there, Martha, which is so true. Everyone has experience, like, in something. I think a lot of art is taking a gamble. You are totally gambling. Every time you make an application, you make a piece, you have no ideas. Why would you not gamble on someone new? Because they might have something amazing in them. It's kind of going back a wee bit, Scottish country dancing. How did you end up in that?
So originally, I've got Scottish family, and we'd gone up for a wedding, and I just got obsessed by the bagpipes. It was like, yeah, a proper Scottish wedding, so there was lots of dancing and stuff. And I came back and was like, Mum, I want to do that. I want to do that. Luckily, like in a town over from where we were living, there were Scottish country dancing classes. And it was great fun. And so it would just be in like a town hall, and you'd learn all the steps and then learn all the set dances. And it's great because it's so intergenerational. So there'd be the kids' classes where we'd be like taught the steps, but then once you got a bit better, you'd go to like the Friday night socials. I was probably about maybe 12 at this sort of age, but there'll be people in their 30s, 40s, up to people in their 70s who are struggling to walk properly but are coming to do these social dances. And like that would be kind of part of your training as well, of like, because obviously with folk dance it is community and everybody's getting involved, and that was also nice to be running alongside my classical ballet classes and that sort of training, to go, hold on, that's not the only situation that dance exists in, the different settings that it can be in. The town that I grew up in has an annual folk festival, so at school we'd learn like some English folk dances and like Morris dancing, and then you'd perform at the folk festival every year. So I think being in more rural England, there were those folk influences around, and it was just by coincidence that we'd gone to Scotland for a family wedding. And I was like, I want to learn this. And so I started taking classes. I remember we'd get paid 10 quid to perform on Burns night and things like that. Burns, so it's a Scottish celebration after Robbie Ban. So it's, yeah, a big celebration. You eat your haggis and everything. So as a Scottish country dancer, this was really exciting when we were little, because you're like getting paid money to dance, and would go perform on Burns night. It was a lovely little like segment of my childhood.
We have one final question for you. We ask this to everyone because you have experience growing up and training in England, and you've only recently come to Ireland. You might have more of an idea from an English government point of view, but do you think there is anything that the government can do better to support artists?
Honestly, so many things. Sometimes I think let's just restart the way it's all set up and run, because I'm not sure how well it's working. I'm thinking of my experiences as a freelancer and how it differed from being a student, because it's quite a recent transition. Having access and space to a group and a community of people that are working in the same field as you, roughly. It might be also doing different arts, you have different medias and everything, or mediums for your art. Having a space where you can all get together and meet and network and just feel looked after and cared for, and like you have each other's back, because we do all have each other's back, but it's a slightly isolated job as a freelancer. And when you get situations like this, which by the way is lovely, and thank you so much for this platform and everything, it's so nice to be able to speak to other people going like, oh yeah, I experienced that, da, da, da. And so I don't know, I think sometimes I just wish for like spaces where you can get together more easily. I really enjoy going to Dance House in Dublin for pro class, and I've met so many people that way, and that's lovely. But of course, like, have to pay for those classes, obvious, like that's how Dance Island runs and everything. But I think just being able to have a space where you can connect more easily and feel the community of it all. We don't have office jobs because none of us wanted to have office jobs, but that also means you don't go into an office and see your colleagues every day and be able to be like, oh, how are you doing from yesterday? How was that? And I think that does make you a bit isolated. I'm not sure if there's even a practical solution to this, but I think spaces and hubs where you can meet people easily, that doesn't break your bank account. Feeling like you can't afford to go meet up with people working in your same sector shouldn't be the case. And having space where, even if it's just chats and conversations, I might look back on that and go, damn, that wasn't a very good answer, and I would say something else instead. But I don't know, I think maybe just having this chat now, oh, it's really lovely. Things like this I think do make a big difference. Finding ways to support, bringing artists together and looking after each other and just having a nice chat. If Arts Council is able to provide more of those spaces, from my experience in Ireland, that would be lovely. And I think the UK could do with it as well. And I think, as always, I know that we've mentioned it a few times, but just make those applications just a bit more accessible. Like, there's no way I can afford to get a producer who's going to help me write those applications. No way. And that's a real shame because everybody should be able to access them. But I know people who write these applications as a job. Writing applications isn't my job. It's something that I have to do to be able to do my job, but it's not something that I'm trained at. I don't know, it feels like you then don't get an equal chance compared to maybe the company who has somebody who's employed to write these applications. Then it just feels like you're fighting for these same pots of money, but from a completely different advantage or disadvantage. That feels frustrating. Yeah, and I know like there are webinars on how you answer these applications, so I do see, and like I did join one for, I think it was a Dublin Arts Council. I see councils making an effort to help with that, but it's still really hard.
Thank you so much, Martha, for coming on and chatting today. It's been lovely chatting to you and getting to know you and your story. And welcome to Ireland. And I hope you have a great time here.
Thank you. I've had a lovely time and it's been so lovely chatting. Thank you again for this platform. It's, a really special thing to have. Because we like chatting so much. Give artists the chance to talk about what they do and we go on forever.
Oh, yeah. No, me and Eve are always down for a good chat.